When you're working on board a cruise ship, there is never a dull moment. The workload can be exhausting at times, but the experiences often make it worth it, unless you take it too far. During your time on board, you might go to some crazy parties and meet some interesting people, and sometimes, well, these people you meet might get close. Really close. And that's where the trouble starts. As someone that's worked on board cruise ships, I've seen a lot. Some things I honestly wish I didn't see. But today I want to tell you about a friend of mine that had something happen to her that typically would be seen as one of the happiest moments in your life, but it ended up costing her her job. She got pregnant.
Let's go!
Hey, what's going on everybody? My name is Jay and welcome to The Ship Life. Here on this channel we give cruise information, news, tips, and every now and then I tell you guys interesting and crazy stories that happened back when I worked on board cruise ships. So today I want to tell you about a good friend of mine that used to be part of my usual clique when I worked on board cruise ships. She ended up getting pregnant and fired. Now I won't use this girl's real name for obvious reasons, so we got to give her something cool and edgy for the story. Let's go with Agnes. Yeah, that's the one. Now, this girl was from the UK and she worked in the spa. Now, if you don't know about the spa workers on board cruise ships, those girls are usually pretty beautiful and a lot of them can be wild. They like to party. So this girl, Agnes, used to go to the crew bar with me and the rest of my group just about every single night we used to go party. There would always be some guy every now and then that would come and try his luck, and sometimes he would be successful. So on board the ship, they would go back to their room or cabin, wherever it is they were going, and bed wrestle. Now, this was normal on board cruise ships, just so we're clear. Everybody was kind of doing their own thing. Some people weren't, and that was just the way it was. So just to put you in the mindset of most of the crew on board cruise ships, picture this. You're on a giant floating hunk of metal away from home, away from your friends, your family, your loved ones, your dog named Fluffy. You're away from all those people for 6 to 9 months, and those people are replaced temporarily with a bunch of beautiful foreign people with outgoing personalities traveling to some of the most beautiful places on planet Earth. You got the crew bar where you can party all you want. You got a pretty carefree environment while on board. On top of that, you got the motion of the ocean. I don't know about you, but for a lot of people, it just kind of put you in the mood for some reason. So with all that into consideration, getting back to the story, we got my friend Agnes. One day we were at the crew bar and there was this new guy that shows up out of nowhere. He's Brazilian, tall, dark, handsome. Let's call him Romeo. So you got Romeo, who he was a cook, by the way, over on the ship. She worked in the spa. So you got the cook from Brazil, you got the spa worker from the UK. It's a very big clash. And what do they say about opposites? Opposites attract. So you can see where the story continues on from here. So you got Romeo who shows up to the crew bar and they make eye contact. Immediately, Romeo turns into Rico Suave, starts putting the moves down on Agnes. She's feeling it. Couple hours later, they skedaddle and head over to go do some bed wrestling. They do this again the second night, and again, and again. You get the idea. Now you're probably wondering, how do I know all this? Was I in the room handing out refreshments and cookies during rounds? No. She ended up telling me. That's how I know, alright? I wasn't there, okay? Was not there. Maybe I was. But anyway, guys, this goes down, and next thing you know, one thing leads to another after a couple rounds of bed wrestling, and now they are dating on board the cruise ship. So here's the thing about cruise ship relationships. I never thought of that. Relationships. Anyway, here's the thing about it. First of all, I just call it a ship bay. And these things, when they happen, these types of relationships in particular, they are never exactly, how should I say, Facebook official. They're just ship official, right? It's kind of like everybody knows on board the cruise ship, and that's usually it. Why? Because typically a lot of people that get involved with these ship bays and relationships on board, they might have a girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, arranged marriage outside in the real world, so they don't want anybody else to know. Also, these people that are in these relationships on board might have a side piece within the cruise ship. They just know to stay low, and whenever they're called for duty, then, you know, they gotta go handle their business. That's typically how it works on board. Now, a couple months go by and Agnes and Romeo are really hitting it off. They're with each other every single waking moment that they aren't working. It got to the point to where they were eventually living with each other. Now, you're probably wondering, do the cruise lines allow men and women to live with each other on board cruise ships? Technically, no, unless you're married, and all of that is figured out throughout the contract prior to getting on board the ship. So, since they weren't married, how did this work? Well, Agnes ended up having a roommate that also worked in the spa. However, she had a ship bae that was an officer, so she would just live in his room during the contract, leaving Agnes to have her own room to do as she saw fit. Meaning, Romeo could stay there literally every single night, and that's how it kind of worked out. Now, with them getting so close and hanging out every night, myself and my group of friends, we had to have the talk with Agnes, because she started throwing around, you know, the big L word, love. She said she loved this guy after only knowing him for 2 or 3 months. So here's the thing about cruise ships. You gotta be extra careful because obviously 2 or 3 months of knowing somebody is a very short time. However, it could be a little bit worse on board cruise ships because you gotta picture this. You're not in exactly a real world setting. You don't see where somebody lives. You don't see the kind of car they drive. You don't see their true personality. Because if you want, you can be pretty much anybody that you want to be on board cruise ships. I could tell people that I have 5 houses back home, a golden retriever, and a pot of gold, and people could believe it because they can't physically see it. So you get the idea. Now, I'm not saying Romeo was pretending to be somebody that he wasn't. He seemed like a pretty good guy because I hung out with him. We got a couple beers every now and then, but she started throwing around this love word. So myself and my friends, we said, look, you got to be careful, especially if you're with this guy every night. If you're not taking birth control or something of that nature, make sure you're wearing a raincoat, a jimmy, a rubber, a condom. Can I say condom on YouTube? Anyway, so after our little talk myself and my friends had with Agnes, a couple months go by and little did we know she didn't listen. So sure enough, she's bed wrestling with Romeo every night without any type of contraceptive, and sure enough, she starts randomly showing signs of just being sick at random times of the day, mostly in the morning. We had an idea what was going on, but I suggested that she go to medical and find out for sure what's up. So she takes a pregnancy test, come to find out that she actually is pregnant, and just like that, literally that week that she found out, by the time we got back to the home port over in New York, they had already gotten her bags together and they were getting her off the ship and sending her home. Romeo, however, was staying. He continued life as normal, continued to work on board ships, and that was the end of it. Okay, wait a minute, time out. What else happens? Because there has to be more to it, right? Actually, I mean, there's a little bit more to it, but that's the gist of it. But I'm sure a lot of you now have a lot of questions. What happens to the girl? Why'd she get fired? What happened to the guy? Why didn't he get fired? So I'll break all this down for you. Of course, right after you guys hit that like button because you're enjoying the video. Seriously, it goes a long way with the YouTube channel. Now, anyway, guys, the way this works, everybody signs a contract because technically nobody is employed with a cruise line, right? Especially the women, they sign a contract and they talk about these specific things. You can't get pregnant on board a ship because if you do, technically you can no longer fulfill your duty on board. Now, I know there are, of course, exceptions to the rules and whatnot, but picture this. You get pregnant on board the ship. You have to do mandatory doctor visits. There are going to be days you aren't feeling well. And on a cruise ship, a lot of the workers there are working anywhere from 10 to 12 hours every single day. A pregnant woman cannot continuously do this. At some point, she's going to have to get medically discharged, which is why they do it early on. So a lot of people would use the term medically discharged instead of being fired, but to me, I personally don't really see a difference. If you get medically discharged, you are not coming back because you've interrupted the contract and they had to spend their own money, the cruise line that is, to fly you home for medical personal purposes. So if you think about it, yeah, it kind of makes sense. But if you want to go a little bit deeper as well, guys, it's very, very simple. The cruise lines, they do not have the medical equipment on board to take care of somebody that is pregnant. They don't have an ultrasound to go ahead and check. On top of that, you are then a hazard because a cruise ship, let's say if you have a day where it's doing a little, it's somewhat rocky sea day, what's going to happen should you fall over? The cruise lines potentially are liable should something happen. So from a business and legal purpose, it just doesn't make sense for them to keep you on board. Unless they work out some kind of contract with the mom and say that by the time the kid turns 18, they are automatically going to work on the ship, which is extremely unlikely. So you get my point here. Now, understandably, I'm sure some of you ladies out there are wondering why the guy didn't get fired. Well, it's simple. First of all, there's really no physical way without getting off the ship to prove that the father of the child is actually who you say it might be. They have to wait for the kid to be born, then they got to do a paternity test. Cruise lines are not getting involved with that. So any girl on any given day, and I doubt she would, just saying, but if she could just point out any random guy and say, you know what, he's the one that did it. He's the one that got me pregnant, right? But aside from all that too, it's not that the woman is being punished. It's for health reasons and the simple fact that she can't perform her duties, and the cruise lines simply do not have the equipment on board to take care of her should something happen like complications during the pregnancy. It only makes sense. As far as the man, he's not pregnant. He can still fulfill his duty. He can still do his work. He can still work 10, 12 hours a day. So just keep that in mind. But I'm going to wrap this up, guys. Let me know what you think about all of this. Do you think it's weird that that happens? Do you actually believe this stuff happens? Because I can assure you that it does. As far as the conclusion with my friend Agnes and Romeo, thankfully they are now married. They're living together. They're raising their child together. together, and it's a very beautiful thing. They're actually living in the UK, and I talk to them literally all the time. But that's a rare occasion. For the ladies out there, I will leave off with this message. Understand that at the end of the day, you are the final say when it comes to what goes into your body, you know what I mean? Like what you actually do. You're the one that says yay or nay to it, right? And you have to make sure you protect yourself at all costs, because should something happen, it's going to be on you and not the guy. And these officers and all the other people on board, the guys, a lot of them are kind of on a mission to be with as many girls as they possibly can. Everybody has been through that phase at some point. A lot of guys, I know I have. Now, this is more so for me when I was younger back in the Globetrotter days, but I can tell you right now, I've had a lot of fun along the way, and I was kind of careless and reckless, and a lot of people on board are doing the same simply for the environment that they're in. So at all costs, make sure you protect yourself. I'm gonna get out of here, guys. Make sure you hit that like button on the way out, comment, share this video as well, because I think this was an interesting story, but also like a life lesson or whatever. But also, guys, subscribe if you haven't already. I got some cool content coming up. And also, if you guys want to get on a cruise ship, you might see some crazy stuff like this go down as a passenger. Who knows? Make sure you check out our travel agent partner, Kimberly Sunset by the Sea. She'll make sure you have a great experience. Make sure you are taken care of. It'll be in the description box below if you want to contact her. Thank you so much for liking the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and take care.